This program is supported by Bank of Commerce, an affiliate of San Miguel Corporation. We think customers.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International.
And I'm CJ Hero. Welcome to the program. On tonight's headlines.
An 8.2 magnitude earthquake struck off the Alaskan Peninsula late Wednesday, the U.S. Geological Survey said, prompting a tsunami warning.
President Duterte approved the recommendation to extend the general community quarantine with heightened restrictions in Metro Manila until August 15, according to Malacanang.
Beijing launched a scathing attack on the BBC, accusing it of broadcasting fake news and saying the organization was naturally unpopular over its coverage of the devastating floods in central China.
And President Rodrigo Duterte congratulated weightlifting champion Heidelin Diaz for winning the country's first ever Olympic gold medal at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics and rewarded her with an additional 3 million pesos aside from the monetary incentive earlier provided by the government.
First, an 8.2 magnitude earthquake struck off the Alaskan Peninsula late Wednesday, according to the USGS, prompting a tsunami warning. Take a look. Now, this earthquake hit 56 miles or 91 kilometers southeast of the town of Perryville, according to the USGS. And the quake struck at 10:15 p.m. Wednesday or 06:15 GMT Thursday. Perryville is a small village about 500 miles from Anchorage, Alaska's biggest city. The U.S. government's National Tsunami Warning Center immediately issued a tsunami alert for South Alaska and the Alaskan Peninsula. It initially warned of hazardous waves. About 2 hours later, it gave an update that the forecast maximum height of any tsunami would be less than 1 foot above tide levels. Tsunami warning sirens were earlier broadcast across Kodiak, an island with a population of about 6,000 people along Alaska's coastline. The warning said any potential tsunami would hit Kodiak about 11:55 p.m. That time passed without any tsunami, according to a broadcaster and local radio station KMXT. 5 aftershocks were recorded within 90 minutes of the earthquake, the largest with a magnitude 6.2, according to the USGS. Alaska is part of the seismically active Pacific Ring of Fire. Alaska was hit by a 9.2 magnitude earthquake in March 1964, the strongest ever recorded in North America. It devastated Anchorage and unleashed a tsunami that slammed the Gulf of Alaska, the U.S. West Coast, and Hawaii. More than 250 people were killed by that quake and the tsunami.
Coronavirus cases at the Tokyo Olympics continue to increase. The increase comes the day after the government officials in Tokyo reported the highest ever number of daily cases in the capital since the pandemic began last year. And health experts in Japan warned that the surge is straining local hospitals. We have Tyra Lu with that report. Tyra.
Japan's daily coronavirus tally has hit a record high for the second day in a row. The Japanese capital, where outside the Olympic bubble pandemic restrictions are mostly voluntary, announced a record 3,865 daily infections on Thursday, up from 3,177 a day earlier. Meanwhile, Australia's track and field team was briefly placed in isolation on Thursday as a coronavirus scare caused fresh jitters on the eve of Tokyo Olympics athletics program. Nearly 60 athletes and staff were confined to their rooms for more than 2 hours after U.S. pole vault world champion Sam Kendricks tested positive for COVID-19. All were later released apart from 3 close contacts of Kendricks, who have tested negative but remain in isolation and will be tested daily. Kendricks earlier became the latest high-profile withdrawal from the Olympics after testing positive for the virus. Organizers announced a daily record of 24 new games-related cases on Thursday, 3 of whom are athletes, taking the overall number of positive cases to 193. The figures do not include all cases at airports and in training camps. Competitors in the July 23rd to August 8th games and other attendees from around the world must follow strict rules to prevent any spread of the virus within the bubble and to the wider city. Spectators are banned from most venues. Experts worry that holding the games sends a confusing message to the public about the need to limit their activities to contain the virus as a highly transmissible Delta variant of COVID-19 spreads. Only 26.5% of residents of Japan are fully vaccinated, and testing is low. Meanwhile, the head of the Japanese government's coronavirus advisory panel, Omi Shigeru, has warned that the country's healthcare system will soon be overwhelmed unless a sense of crisis is shared by society as a whole. He told an upper house committee meeting on Thursday that there are many factors that could lead to a further surge in coronavirus cases, while there are only a few that could curb the spread of infections. Omi said that if the situation does not change, the virus will spread further and the healthcare system will be put under more serious strain. He said this is the toughest situation of the past 18 months and urged the government to issue a strong message to the public. Right here from Tokyo, Japan, this is Tyranel Pililu for Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, Thailand's health ministry sounded an alarm over Bangkok's dire lack of hospital beds and isolation facilities. We have Crystal Mapa joining us live from Bangkok. Hello, Crystal.
Hi, Alma. Yes, Thailand's health ministry sounded the alarm over Bangkok's dire lack of hospital beds and isolation facilities on Thursday as COVID-19 cases and deaths soared to a new record. The Southeast Asian country is struggling to contain its latest outbreak, fueled by the highly contagious Delta variant, with infections and deaths skyrocketing and the healthcare system stretched thin. Despite the hardest hit provinces being placed under severe restrictions and nighttime curfew, Thailand on Thursday registered a new single-day record of 17,669 cases and 165 deaths. Somsak Akasil, the Health Ministry's Director General of the Department of Medical Services, in an uncharacteristically candid press conference, admitted that they do not have enough beds in hospitals. Hospitals in the capital have the capacity to manage 1,000 new patients a day, but Somsak said they were well past that number, with 4,000 new cases recorded Thursday in Bangkok alone. While authorities are starting to recommend home isolation for milder cases, there are issues with supplying medicine to them, said Somsak. In addition, the city's isolation and quarantine facilities are getting filled, and metropolitan authorities are working with private hospitals to free up more beds. Thailand has reported more than 561,000 coronavirus cases and 4,562 deaths. The bulk of them were detected since the latest wave kicked off in April from an upscale Bangkok nightlife district frequented by the politically connected. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much, Crystal, and you do take care over there.
Likewise, Alma. Reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand, I am Crystal Mapa. We live in interesting times.
In other news, President Duterte approved the recommendation to extend the general community quarantine with heightened restrictions in Metro Manila until August 15, announced Malacanang. President Duterte said his administration has to continue imposing strict measures against COVID-19 to protect public health and safety. He said he was left with no choice but to heed the medical experts' advice. Take a look.
Inatubad po ng Presidente ang pagbigay ng 1,000 tulong sa mga nangangailangang mga kababayan natin sa mga areas na nasa ilalim ng ECQ, at ito po ay hanggang maximum na 4 kada pamilya. Tsaka ang healthcare utilization rate. Mananatiling nasa Enhanced Community Quarantine po or ECQ ang Iloilo City, ang Iloilo Province sa Region 6, ang Cagayan de Oro City at Hingog City sa Region 10. Ito ay magsisimula sa Linggo, August 1 at tatagal hanggang August 7, 2021. Ito naman po ang mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine or MECQ mula 1 na Agosto hanggang 15 na Agosto. Ilocos Norte sa Region 1, Bataan sa Region 3, Lapu-Lapu City at Mandawi City sa Region 7. Samantala, in-extend ang General Community Quarantine or GCQ with heightened restrictions para po sa National Capital Region simula Agosto 1 hanggang 15 ng Agosto. Ang mga lugar na nasa ilalim ng GCQ with heightened restrictions from August 1 to August 15, 2021. Ito po ang mga lugar ng NCR, Ilocos Sur, Cagayan, Bulacan, Laguna, Lucena City, Cavite, Rizal, Naga City, Antique, Aklan, Bacolod, Capiz, Negros Oriental, Zamboanga del Sur, Misamis Oriental, Davao City, Davao del Norte, Davao de Oro, Davao Occidental at Butuan City. Mapapasailalim naman po sa General Community Quarantine o GCQ ang siyudad ng Baguio, ang probinsya ng Apayao, ang City of Santiago sa Isabela, ang Nueva Vizcaya, ang Quirino, ang Quezon, ang Batangas, Puerto Princesa, Guimaras, and Negros Occidental, ang Zamboanga Sibugay, ang City of Zamboanga and Zamboanga del Norte, ang Davao Oriental and Davao del Sur, ang General Santos City po, ang Sultan Kudarat, ang Sarangani, North Cotabato, South Cotabato, ang Agusan del Norte, Surigao del Norte, Agusan del Sur, Dinagat Island, and Surigao del Sur, kasama rin po ang Cotabato City.
Huwag ninyong isipin ito na ginusto namin ito para sa inyo. Sa totoo lang ayaw namin. Kaya lang, kami ang nandito sa gobyerno, mga trabahante ngayon, kami yung inatasan ng batas na magpairal ng mga ganitong measures to protect the public health and public safety.
The Metro Manila Council is asking the national government to impose an enhanced community quarantine in the National Capital Region due to rising cases of COVID-19 that could be driven by the highly transmissible Delta variant. In an online presser today, Metropolitan Manila Development Authority or MMDA Chief Benjamin Abalos Jr. said the suggestion to the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases was made after an emergency meeting on Wednesday evening. Ideally, he said, the MMC is recommending a 14-day ECQ to help stop the current rise in cases, provision of funds for a social amelioration program, and a donation of 4 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine to be administered within the same time frame.
To Europe now, where France will from August 9 enforce new legislation that will make a health pass compulsory to visit a cafe, board a plane, or travel on an intercity train, according to the government spokeswoman today. The legislation passed by Parliament at the weekend has sparked mass protests in France, but the government is determined to press ahead and make the health pass a key part of the fight against COVID-19. A valid health pass is generated by 2 jabs from a recognized vaccine, a negative coronavirus test, or a recent recovery from infection. The legislation also makes vaccination compulsory for health workers and carers. The pass has already been obligatory from July 21 for visits to museums, cinemas, and venues with a capacity of more than 50 people. Government spokesman Gabriel Attal said it would also be obligatory in cases or in cafes, restaurants, flights, and intercity trains from August 9.
In other news, police in Australia's largest city have requested military help to enforce a coronavirus lockdown as infections in Sydney reached a record number today. State Premier Gladys Berejiklian warned that the outbreak, which began mid-June when a driver for an international flight crew contracted the virus, is likely to get worse. Commissioner Mick Fuller said New South Wales Police had asked for 300 Australian Defence Force personnel to be deployed to boost its operational footprint. Let's listen in.
We had a record of, but regrettably we also had quite a large increase in the number of cases overnight. So 239 cases of community transmission. Around at least 70 of those were infectious in the community, and based on those numbers, we can only assume that things are likely to get worse before they get better, given the quantum of people infectious in the community. Can we stress again, as we have in the last weeks, most of these transmissions are occurring amongst households and in workplaces, but also in health settings. If you're going to a pharmacist or a GP, make sure you don't have symptoms. Make sure that you're asking for medical help from home if you need to obtain any medical help whilst you have symptoms.
Commissioner, the New South Wales Government and the New South Wales Police detest the fact that we've had to increase these penalties and provide extra power to the police force. It is certainly not something that we want to do, and it is in fact something that we cannot wait to shred. These powers, these health orders, these restrictions are something that the government cannot get rid of quick enough. But it's quite clear from the overwhelming number of people that are doing the right thing, that same overwhelming number of people have had a gutful of their fellow residents doing the wrong thing. And that's evident by the fact that we are now getting tens of thousands of people reporting breaches through Crime Stoppers. And my appeal to the people of New South Wales is to make sure you continue providing that information.
Police have increasingly been doling out fines to those violating the restrictions, and police said those efforts would be stepped up in the coming days. Last weekend, thousands of people gathered in central Sydney to protest against the measures, and further demonstrations have been mooted. Police have also requested more powers to shut down businesses that they say are not abiding by rules on social distancing. Sydney residents are only allowed to leave their homes for exercise, essential work, medical reasons, and to shop for necessities such as food.
Meanwhile, more than 4 billion doses of anti-COVID vaccines have already been administered around the world, 8 months after the vaccination drive started, according to an AFP count today. Global injections have slowed slightly. The 4th billion dose was reached in 30 days, while it took only 26 days to reach the previous one. The 1st and 2nd billion were reached after about 140 and 40 days respectively. 40% or 1.6 billion of the 4 billion shots have been administered in China, India, and the United States, make up the trio of countries that have administered the most jabs.
Now, amidst the pandemic, the Iglesia Ni Cristo's care has been felt by the people across the Mediterranean. An aid to humanity of Iglesia Ni Cristo reaches Greece, Cyprus, Israel, Malta, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. Here's Judith Amos reporting from ABC Israel.
As the pandemic continues its course around the world, people's lives are impacted in so many ways. Urged by their deep concern for their fellow men, the members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ in Greece, Cyprus, Malta, Israel, Turkey, and Azerbaijan join efforts to bring aid to those in need. Under the Project Aid to Humanity, the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ reaches out to the community. In Athens, Greece, members were able to provide aid to a local orphanage, while members in Nicosia, Cyprus, extended theirs to a local school for the visually impaired. Throughout Israel, members gave a helping hand to their neighbors. In Malta, the homeless and less fortunate were also given assistance. Elderly in Istanbul, Turkey were given support too. And in Azerbaijan, members assisted a charity. Overseas Filipino workers in Limassol, Cyprus, and Jerusalem, Israel, were also not forgotten. For the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ, helping people is an act of love. And no matter where people are in the world, be they in a developed or a developing country, the smile on their faces shows that acts of kindness, be they big or small, go a long way.
Most of the children here are the age between 2 years old up to 5 years old. We would like to thank you because your effort is very necessary to me, especially for this period, because due to COVID, we can't accept very charities. And for this reason, your effort and your offer has an immense importance for us. I would like to thank Mr. Eduardo V. Manalo as Executive Minister of the Church of the Christ for this essential offer to our institution.
Reporting for Eagle News International from Israel, I am Judith Imus. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, Judith. And Eagle News will be right back.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
I'm very happy and honored to have this opportunity to congratulate you, all the members in 158 countries, and also Brother Eduardo V. Manalo for your success and contribution to the community you served. Greetings to all of you. Congratulations and happy anniversary. God bless.
Congratulations and happy 107th anniversary to the members and officers of the Iglesia Ni Cristo or Church of Christ. Special greetings to your dynamic leader, Executive Minister Brother Eduardo. Your global church, which can now be found in 158 countries, has helped communities worldwide through various outreach programs. Thank you and happy anniversary to you all.
Britain has become warmer, wetter, and sunnier this century due to climate change. That, according to an annual report by leading meteorologists on Thursday, prompting warnings of record summer temperatures in future decades. The study, The State of the UK Climate 2020, found that last year was the third warmest, fifth wettest, and eighth sunniest on record in the United Kingdom. It was the first time that a single 12-month period has registered in the top 10 for all three variables. The report also said the trend has already led to increasingly extreme weather as Britain's temperatures rise slightly above the global mean. It was the first time that a single 12-month period has registered in the top 10 for all three variables. The trend has already led to increasing extreme weather. Now, lead author Mike Kendon of the National Climate Information Center said it was plausible that the country could regularly hit summer temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit by 2040, even with climate change mitigation policies. The UK's highest temperature ever recorded is 38.7 degrees Celsius, set in July 2019.
Now, in the usually sunny state of Rio Grande do Sul, southern Brazil, residents are amused by an unusual snowfall with temperatures dropping to -5 degrees Celsius. Snow was recorded in cities such as Pelotas, São Francisco de Paula, Gramado, Carlos Barbosa, Bagay, Herval, Piratini, Caxias do Sul, Marau, and Farupilha, it was reported. Now, the wave of cold air that passes through southern northern Brazil brought snow to at least 13 cities in Rio Grande do Sul, in addition to frozen rain. Now, according to SOMAR Meteorologia, there was snowfall in the places that were mentioned earlier, and children took to the streets to celebrate and build up snowmen, which are very foreign to the area. Now, other parts of Rio Grande do Sul were less blessed by nature, and instead of snowfalls, they recorded hail-like phenomena such as frozen rain when water droplets freeze when falling off the cloud but melt when they touch the ground.
In other news, killings of people with albinism have increased during the COVID-19 pandemic, according to a United Nations independent expert on albinism rights today. The increase came as some people who sank into poverty turned to witchcraft, hoping to gain quick health during the crisis, according to Ikponwoso Ero, the UN's first independent expert on the enjoyment of human rights by persons with albinism, in a statement. UN experts report their findings to the global body but do not speak for it. Albinism is a rare, non-contagious, genetically inherited condition which occurs worldwide regardless of ethnicity or gender. It most commonly results in the lack of melanin pigment in the hair, skin, and eyes, causing vulnerability to sun exposure. The physical appearance of persons with albinism is often the object of erroneous beliefs and myths influenced by superstition, which foster their marginalization and social exclusion, according to the United Nations. Dehumanization of people with the condition leads to horrifying physical attacks, according to the UN Rights Office.
In other news, Beijing launched a scathing attack on the BBC, accusing it of broadcasting fake news and saying the organization was naturally unpopular over its coverage of devastating floods in central China. The broadside by the Foreign Ministry comes after the BBC called on Beijing to put a stop to the harassment of its journalists by nationalists who have accused foreign media of biased reporting. Days of heavy rain last week sparked record flooding in the central province of Henan that has claimed the lives of at least 99 people. The BBC said its reporters covering the deluge had been subjected to online vitriol, while other outlets had been harassed on the ground in attacks which continue to endanger foreign journalists. But Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian on Thursday called the broadcaster a fake news broadcasting company that has attacked and smeared China, seriously deviating from journalistic standards. Zhao said the BBC deserved to be unpopular with the Chinese public, and there is no such thing as hatred without reason. The war of words erupted after a youth branch of China's ruling Communist Party on Tuesday posted comments online calling on its 1.6 million followers to track the movements of BBC reporters. The comments by Henan Communist Youth League spurred death threats against BBC correspondents from nationalistic internet users.
In Elizabeth, New Jersey, the mayor declared July 27 Iglesia Ni Cristo Day. Mayor Michael Petrino of New Milford, New Jersey, and Assemblyman Chris Tully of the state of New Jersey gave recognition certificates to the church. Let's find out more from El Aguilar.
In celebration of the 107th anniversary of the Church of Christ around the world, this international organization has not only received greetings from government officials in different countries. In the city of Elizabeth, New Jersey, here in the United States, the mayor, Chris Ballwich, declared this day of July 27 as Iglesia Ni Cristo Day. This is in recognition and thanks for the dedication of the members of the Church of Christ here in this part of the world.
Especially Iglesia Ni Cristo and the church in celebrating your anniversary. So from religious leadership and guidance to transformative programs, Iglesia Ni Cristo continues to have a positive effect on the city of Elizabeth. Your dedication to providing assistance, improving the quality of life for others, and empowering individuals is inspiring. The commitment displayed by Iglesia en Cristo is an example how each of us can build a better community. Your church has been an active community partner, participating in citywide events, as well as offering encouragement, care, support throughout our entire municipality. Implementing worthy initiatives, addressing residential needs, your church continues to strengthen our neighborhoods as well as provide a solid foundation for positive community contributions. So the City of Elizabeth commends Iglesia en Cristo on their contributions, achievements, and continued efforts throughout our community. The City of Elizabeth congratulates Executive Minister, Brother Edward Manolo, and members of the church around the world on the anniversary and recognizes their extraordinary 107 years supporting the community through ministry, service, and assistance. So as Mayor of the City of Elizabeth, I hereby proclaim July 27th as Iglesia en Cristo Day in the City of Elizabeth, and thank you for your commitment.
The locality of the Church of Christ in the City of Elizabeth was established decades ago. As the fourth largest city in New Jersey, the City of Elizabeth has a population of over 125,000 people. Since Iglesia en Cristo had a local congregation in the city, it has been an active partner of the local government in almost all socio-civic activities launched by the city.
So one of the things that the church has done when they get together and clean up is they teach the young people of the church how important it is in order to keep a clean environment. See, I remember being a little older than many of the church members. I remember a commercial that was run here in the 1960s, and they had this big Indian standing on the side of a road, and then the car would drive by and throw litter out the car, and then the Indian would have teardrops running down his cheek. So what this church has done by encouraging the young people of the church to work on cleanups throughout the community is how important it is to have a safe and clean environment in which you live, work, and attend church. Well, the church has been instrumental in hopefully encouraging all of their members to get vaccinated. The church has been instrumental in telling the congregants to wear masks and making sure that when they're out in public or in confined spaces, that mask wearing helps prevent the spread of this virus. And even today, when we were on the steps of City Hall celebrating, this pandemic is not over. This variant is very contagious and very dangerous, and it's important to recognize that we must have personal responsibility and encourage all of us. And the church is a good way to start, and Iglesia en Cristo has done that by encouraging their members to be safe and respect the protocols that have been issued by the CDC and the federal government.
Church members voluntarily take part in cleaning the environment, in helping the poor, even help unfortunate kids through INC giving and aid to humanity projects.
Also significant is the mayor also acknowledged the dynamic and inspired leadership of Brother Eduardo V. Manalo in the Church of Christ as he continues to spearhead the church in all of our not only socio-civic activities and programs, but especially as we continue to prepare the whole church, all brothers and sisters throughout the world for the nearing day of our salvation.
Council President Eddie Grant, thank you for being a part of our community, and on behalf of the Borough of the Milford, I have a certificate of achievement to present to you. Congratulations to Iglesia en Cristo Church of Christ for celebrating 107 years of faith and service. Thank you to all the members for being a part of our worldwide and local communities. Presented this 27th day of July, 2021, signed by Mayor Michael Triano.
Chris Tully, and I'm honored to represent towns as amazing officials like this in Milford and also Bergenfield, where this tremendous church has such a large base and following. It was an honor to be here last year as you helped with veterans in our community, and as you continue to help our community. I really just wanted to come here and say congratulations on celebrating 107 years. It's an amazing achievement. And also on behalf of myself, Senator Joe Lagana, and Assemblywoman Lisa Swain, we have a citation from the Senate and General Assembly in honor of the Church of Christ by the citizens of the 38th New Jersey Legislative District through their elected representatives in recognition of their 107th anniversary and in honor of the outstanding leadership of the Executive Minister Eduardo Manalo. So thank you so much, everybody.
Hi, I'm New Milford Councilman Matt Seymour. Congratulations. Happy 107th anniversary to all of the members worldwide of the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ worldwide. And thank you. Thank you for your dedication and service to our community here at home in New Milford.
The proclamation dedicating July 27 as Iglesia Ni Cristo Day was a long time coming. For so many years, the local government and the Iglesia Ni Cristo in this part of the world have shared goals and worked together in various social activities benefiting the community. For Eagle News, El Aguilar, we live in interesting times.
Eagle News will be back with more stories. Please don't go away.
Bank of Commerce. What we are is personal banking, where we understand that every deposit is your hard-earned money. Every loan is for good reason. Every service aids in your convenience. Every business of ours is meant to grow yours. We hear you, feel you, and we act on your every banking need. Bank of Commerce, an affiliate of San Miguel Corporation.
Congratulations to the Iglesia de Cristo or Church of Christ, especially to the members and to the Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, on your 107th year anniversary. Your presence is now in 158 countries. You bring peace, love, and hope in many communities.
Welcome back. The government targets end-to-end processing of business applications in 1 day before the year ends. That is according to the Department of Trade and Industry Secretary Ramon Lopez. During the Laging Handa public briefing today, Lopez said this heeds the call of President Duterte during his last State of the Nation address to end queuing in government offices to avail of public services. Take a look.
Doon sa term ng starting a business. In other words, kung magkukuha tayo ng business sa SEC, kung corporation or DTI, kung sole proprietorship, tapos nakakonect na rin yan sa SSL at pagkatapos pati sa BIR. And as we na rin po ngayon yung mga LGUs, yung pagkuhan, lahat po ng proseso na yan, dati po, umaabot ng more than 1 dahil pupunta ka sa bawat agency na yan. Ngayon po, papaikli na into mga 3 to 5 days. But this year, we think, and we could talk already to the SEC, for example, days na portion nila ay gagawin na rin 1 day para the whole line of application maging within 1 day.
Lopez said that with the ease of doing business, he expects more Filipinos would engage in livelihood activities. During the kapihan sa ARTA or Anti-Red Tape Authority, Lopez said automating government services is an effective way to eliminate queues in government offices.
Global growth is strong, but divides are growing between advanced and developing countries, largely due to slow rolling out of vaccines in many countries and the spread of the Delta variant mutation to COVID-19, the IMF says in its latest quarterly update to the World Economic Outlook report on July 27. Although the total global growth forecast remains at 6% this year, that masks changes in the individual prospects, said IMF Chief Economist Jita Gopinath in a virtual news conference. Take a look.
In terms of the divergences, that is one of the main messages of this WEO update, which is that, well, the global economy in terms of growth is projected at 6%, which is unchanged from April. The composition has changed. We have an upgrade for advanced economies offset entirely by downgrade for emerging and developing economies. And that is the big concern, because it was already diverging, and that has exacerbated in this period. It's a reflection of some very big fault lines that are growing, which is, one is unequal access to vaccinations. The second is that fiscal support is much easier to maintain in advanced economies, which have easy access to financing. But on the other hand, for many developing countries, it's either already over and they're pulling back. And again, in terms of risks that come with food price inflation, inflation in general, that's leading interest rates. So these are very important divides that are widening. I will just broadly comment on the phenomenon of inflation for emerging markets and developing economies. What we're seeing for several of those economies is that because of a combination of factors, including their currency weakening, we are seeing some very high inflation readings. And several of these countries have actually started raising interest rates because of the concern that these inflation pressures could become persistent. And this is a concern. So I would make a distinction between emerging and developing economies and a lot of advanced economies, where, again, in advanced economies, you are seeing inflationary pressures. But in emerging and developing economies, we are seeing this show up, and markets are expecting that interest rates will go up actually much faster than in the advanced economies. So our inflation forecasts for the U.S. are to have a high inflation reading this year, around 4%. But then by the end of next year, we expect core personal consumption expenditure inflation to come down to around 2.5%. So our baseline is very much the case where we expect a lot of the inflation pressures to be transitory and then to return to much more normal ranges next year. In terms of what would be concerning, it would be if the case where if we saw medium-term inflation expectations de-anchoring. So if they were moving kind of durably away from the Fed's 2% target and moving away in a way that we haven't seen before, then that would indeed give pause for concern, because that would be the sign that what we're seeing right now is no longer transitory, but it could show up in more persistent inflation, because it's going to enter wage contracts, it's going to enter pricing contracts, and so on.
In other business news, Pfizer sharply increased its 2021 projection for revenues tied to its COVID-19 vaccine, forecasting the delivery of 500 million more doses compared with earlier expectations. The U.S. drug maker, which has partnered with Germany's BioNTech on the vaccine, estimates delivering 2.1 billion doses, generating 33.5 billion in sales. The company's May forecast was for $26 billion in sales. Pfizer also lifted its full-year profit outlook, as well as the expected range for 2021 revenues. Pfizer has launched clinical studies on a possible third dose of a COVID-19 vaccine as a booster shot. Pfizer Chief Executive Albert Bourla has said such boosters could amount to a durable revenue stream for the company. But U.S. health officials have thus far not backed a third shot for the broad population. But officials are studying the need for a third shot in immunocompromised people.
In the U.S., the political gridlock around the U.S.'s infrastructure seems to have broken. A bipartisan group of senators now agree on $1 trillion investment in public works projects. The White House said the deal will create millions of good jobs and make the U.S. economy more robust, sustainable, resilient, and just. The measure includes $550 billion in new spending over the next 5 years. Of that, $110 billion is to improve highways, $65 billion is to expand broadband access, and $47 billion to combat environmental disasters. The White House said revenue would come from redirecting unspent COVID emergency relief funds, boosting corporate fees, and strengthening tax enforcement on cryptocurrencies. The challenge now is getting enough votes, but the Senate negotiators, including Alaska's Lisa Murkowski, sound optimistic. Take a look.
Infrastructure is about bringing America together again. Infrastructure is about connections, whether it is connections by road or rail or how we move on the water. It's how we connect through the broadband. It's how we connect through things like water and wastewater systems. It's connections. And the connections that you're seeing here tonight, the relationships that have been built, the bipartisanship that you are seeing on display, this is yet another way to bring America together.
The bill would still need to clear the House of Representatives, where it could face resistance from progressive Democrats. Some have warned they would not sign on unless Biden's ambitious $3.5 trillion budget package, including once-in-a-generation spending on healthcare, education, social welfare, and climate action, also passes the Senate. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said that package, which Democrats plan to pass without Republican support through a budget reconciliation process, is proceeding on track and is expected to get a floor vote before the Senate breaks for its recess.
And the Iglesia Ni Cristo continues its outreach activities. We have Annabelle Reynolds from our EBC UK Bureau. Annabelle.
Has now passed the halfway mark of 2021. 16 months since the beginning of lockdown here in the United Kingdom. The unprecedented widespread of coronavirus has had significant impact across the world, with alarming concerns about our community's long-term health and financial situation. Continuing with their aid to humanity programs, the Iglesia Ni Cristo across the United Kingdom remained resilient. Despite the harsh economic conditions, its members continue to reach out, supporting communities who are in need of help. Care packages containing food items, sanitation products, and basic medicinal first aid supplies were prepared by the members of the church, who presented them to their local food banks, nursing homes, as well as personal drop-off visits to the homes of the elderly members of the community. Some of the responses received were an overwhelming expression of thankfulness. It doesn't take much to lift someone's spirits. Small acts of compassion is often all it takes to connect with one another. I'm Grace Rivera for Eagle News.
Weightlifter Heidelin Diaz returns to a hero's welcome here in Manila after bagging the Philippines' first gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics. Take a look.
Malaking bagay po talaga yung suportang binigay niyo sa akin at sa lahat ng mga Pilipino athletes. At makita niyo naman na kayang-kaya nating manalo sa Olympics. Na kaya ko, kaya niyo. So don't ever give up on your dreams and life. Gusto ko pong sabihin sa lahat ng mga Pilipino na maraming salamat sa paniwalang binigay niya sa akin. At sa mga players.
Officers welcomed by her colleagues in uniform, waving flags as she journeys to a hotel for a government-mandated quarantine. As a reward for winning gold, Diaz will receive at least 33 million pesos or $655,000 from the government and private sector, as well as a house. Property developer Mega World Corporation also announced Tuesday it would give the Philippine Air Force woman a residential condominium worth 14 million pesos. It could also prove a game changer for other Filipino athletes, according to presidential spokesman Harry Roque, acknowledging government financial support was insufficient. Take a look.
Milyon-milyon po ang pinangako ng presidente para doon sa makakakamit ng gintong medalya, at ang pribadong sektor ay naglaan din ng milyon-milyon. I think itong victory na ito is also a game changer for Philippine sports. Ito po yung dahilan siguro dahilan para pag-isipan ng ating mga policy makers na kinakailangan talaga maglaan ng mas malaking suporta sa ating mga atleta.
Diaz said she has not seen her family since December 2019 and has spoken openly of the sacrifices she has made in pursuit of her dream. But after a sleepless night, Diaz said Tuesday she was already thinking about the Paris Olympics in 2024.
Philippine Air Force Chief Lieutenant General Allen Paredes has pinned weightlifter and Tokyo Olympic gold medalist Heidelin Diaz with her staff sergeant chevron shortly after she arrived in the country. Heidelin, a sergeant at the PAF, was promoted to staff sergeant or sergeant effective Tuesday in honor of her historic gold medal after dominating the women's 55-kilogram weightlifting competition late last July. Paredes met and welcomed Diaz during her arrival at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 2. As part of her safety protocols against the coronavirus, Diaz will be undergoing the 10-day mandatory quarantine.
And finally, in our news, President Rodrigo Duterte congratulated weightlifting champion Heidelin Diaz for winning the country's first ever Olympic gold medal at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics and rewarded her with an additional 3 million pesos aside from the monetary incentive earlier provided by the government. Take a look.
You will have one of the highest of the nation's presidential medals, the Presidential Medal of Merit. Sa iyo rin yan. It will be given to you, I think, here in appropriate ceremonies.
Thank you so much, President. Thank you so much, President.
And in addition to what the law gives to you, batas to that yung may gold by law will be given 3 million plus yung gold mo plus 3 million ang ibigay ko sa iyo.
Duterte also gave some advice to Heidelin, adding that her victory was a blessing from God. Prior to her win on Monday, Heidelin Diaz won a silver medal in the 2016 Rio Olympics. Senator Christopher Bongo and other members of the president's cabinet also greeted and congratulated Heidelin on her victory. Among them are Health Secretary Francisco Duque, Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque, and Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., who was a former Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines.
Still excited whenever I see her.
I know, and we're doing so well in boxing, so there are a lot more games that we are going to be watching out for.
That's right.
Good luck to all of them. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. Please join us back tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, as I always say, there remains so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
This program is supported by Bank of Commerce, an affiliate of San Miguel Corporation. We think customers.